All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're setting the stage for a classic campfire-style ghost story, pulled straight from a really chilling first-hand account. We're going to be following a veteran truck driver named Ranjit. Now, this is a man with 40 years of experience on the road. He's seen it all. But out of all his decades behind the wheel, there's this one specific night on Highway 19, which locals often call the trunk road, that just completely defies all logic. We're going to break down his terrifying experience and examine exactly how a totally routine delivery devolved into an absolute nightmare. You know, the source material actually introduces Ranjit's story with this exact thought. Where human thought ends, the dark world begins. And wow, that just perfectly captures the descent into the unknown that we're about to explore together. It's this eerie reminder that sometimes the paths we take lead us right off the map of rationality and straight into something entirely inexplicable. To truly wrap your head around the dread of this journey, we have to talk about this number, 35. That's how many years ago this fateful night took place. Think about that for a second. This was an era entirely without cell phones, completely without GPS, and no instant communication whatsoever. If you got lost on a highway wrapped in blinding fog back then, your total isolation was absolute. You couldn't just drop a pin on a map for help. You literally had to rely on the road itself, and whoever or whatever you happened to meet along the way.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The foggy, dark highway. So Ranjit has this seemingly ordinary task. He's transporting these massive, heavy iron almiras, wardrobes basically, for a company called Kishan Lal & Sons. But almost as soon as he sets out, the highway is just swallowed by a dense, blinding fog. We're talking so thick his headlights can barely slice through it. Needing directions, Ranjit pulls over to give a ride to this tired-looking old man walking alone on the side of the road. But when Ranjit mentions his destination is Ejnara village, the old man's entire demeanor shifts. He gives Ranjit this incredibly ominous warning. Don't go there. The atmosphere is not good. He tells him the village is entirely abandoned, and then he just completely refuses to answer any more questions before getting out of the truck. I mean, talk about your first major red flag, right?
So now Ranjit is faced with a choice. Honestly, ask yourself, would you have ignored your gut feeling just to take a shortcut? On one hand, he sees a shiny new blue sign pointing to a safe bypass. But, it adds distance and burns more fuel. On the other hand, his headlights hit this dilapidated old lime-painted milestone, pointing straight toward the village of Ajnara. Ultimately, a truck driver's natural curiosity, and let's be real, the desire to shave 30 minutes off the drive, wins out. Ranjit turns the wheel toward the village.
Now, what's really interesting here is how quickly the supernatural dread grounds itself into a very physical, suffocating reality. As soon as Ranjit enters Ejnara, the silence is just deafening. There are no barking dogs anywhere, which, if you know folklore, is a classic sign that the environment is tainted. And instead of fresh night air, there's this overwhelming heavy smell of old dead smoke, almost like hundreds of oil lamps had just been snuffed out. To make it worse, lining this dirt road are all these mud houses with shut wooden doors, completely covered in countless dusty handprints. Just chills.
Section 2. The Cursed Village Secrets.
The tension absolutely snaps when Ranjit nearly crashes his truck right into a massive tree standing inexplicably right in the middle of the road. He's forced to reverse back past those dead, silent houses, but just as he's about to step out to investigate, a mysterious girl, she looks maybe 25 years old, wearing a green dupatta, just steps right out from the pitch-black shadows. And she doesn't just give him directions, she drops this horrifying, escalating timeline of the Ajnara forest's curse. First, she explains that decades ago, desperate farmers hung themselves after a cruel landlord seized their lands. Years later, she says city boys who camped out in those woods were found dead, entirely drained of their blood. And shortly after that, in a devastating dispute with that exact same landlord, a ruined family of 25 to 30 people committed mass suicide.
She finishes this incredibly grim history with a chilling final warning. She tells Ranjit he has to drive past a very specific cluster of 5 or 6 old mud houses flanked by banyan trees, but under no circumstances should he enter that perimeter, because, and I quote, "Those who go in, stay here." With that absolute terrifying statement hanging in the air, Ranjit looks away for just a split second, and the girl completely vanishes, into thin air. No footsteps, no shadows, just gone.
In a state of sheer panic, Ranjit absolutely floors the accelerator. The road instantly becomes a living nightmare. These weird, white, monkey-like shapes start leaping through the trees alongside the truck, pacing him. As he speeds past those 5 or 6 houses the girl warned him about, glowing red eyes are suddenly staring out from the previously pitch-black windows. And then, out of nowhere, a mud-covered, ghostly woman with hollow eyes and hovering feet appears right in the middle of the road, literally trying to block his truck. Ranjit swerves wildly, barely missing her as he bursts out of the village limits.
Section 3. The eerie abandoned warehouse.
Finally, Ranjit hits a paved road. He reaches this rusty, desolate warehouse that's bathed in these eerie blue tube lights. The gate is open, but the atmosphere, it's just unbelievably heavy. Still, he breathes a sigh of relief. He thinks he's survived the worst of it and reached his drop-off. But it's like the fog actually followed him inside the cabin of his truck. He knocks on the office door and finds this terrified, sunken-eyed watchman. When Ranjit hands over the paperwork for Kishan Lal and Sons, the watchman just freezes. He stammers that no goods have ever come under that name. But instead of turning Ranjit away, the watchman's voice trembles as he points to a shutter and orders, "Drop the goods and leave. Ask nothing."
And this brilliantly illustrates how the tension peaks. As the local laborers are helping Ranjit unload these heavy iron almirahs, the temperature in the warehouse plummets. Ranjit's hand accidentally brushes against a lock on one of the wardrobes, a lock engraved with the word Ajnara. Suddenly, it pops open completely on its own. Inside, a damp red cloth that smells distinctly of hot iron and blood. The exact second that bloody cloth hits the floor, every single tube light in the warehouse blows out simultaneously. Pop. The laborers just start screaming and bolt for their lives, leaving Ranjit completely alone in total darkness.
Standing there in the pitch black, Ranjit suddenly feels this damp, suffocating weight wrap around his neck. It feels exactly like invisible, freezing cold hands physically pressing into his skin. Out of the darkness, a woman's voice, sounding like an echo drifting up from a deep well, whispers his name. She says, "Why are you running, Ranjit? You won't be able to leave." Gasping for breath, he violently thrashes, breaks free from whatever is holding him, scrambles back into his truck, and just tears out of the warehouse compound.
Section 4. The Terrifying Escape.
He is back out on the dark highway, peeling away at maximum speed. But as the road curves back toward the village boundaries, his headlights catch a familiar figure. It's the mysterious girl from earlier. She's waiting for him on the roadside. She steps up, places her freezing cold hand on his truck's footboard, and tells him the night is far from over. He is definitely not alone on this road. She gives him 3 strict rules for survival, and there is absolute life-or-death urgency in her voice. Rule 1, go straight. Rule 2, do not stop. Rule 3, ignore anyone who calls out to you, tries to stop you, or appears on the road. She warns them that the shadows of those who never left are waiting, and with this eerie, final smile, she dissolves right back into the fog.
So Ranjit keeps driving and gets onto what looks like a brand new paved bypass. He even spots a police checkpoint ahead and slows down, finally feeling a wave of relief. But the cops there just tell him to leave without looking back. When he glances in his rearview mirror, a skeletal entity literally leaps from the police jeep into the surrounding trees, following him. Then, the impossible happens. This smooth, paved road physically betrays him. It instantly morphs into rough dirt. He slams on the brakes, realizing with absolute horror that he's been dropped right back into the center of the curse. He is facing the exact same mud houses and the exact same banyan trees. It's a nightmarish spatial loop.
And because the road turned to dirt, Ranjit's truck gets stuck, which means he just broke the ultimate rule. He stopped. Instantly, the doors of the mud houses fly open. A black cloud of smoke pours out and morphs into a screaming mob of shadowy figures, men, women, and children with hollow, empty eyes. They swarm the trapped truck, violently clawing at the windshield and literally biting the metal. Operating on pure adrenaline, Ranjit floors the accelerator. The tires spin wildly, finally catch some grip, and the truck violently breaks through the mob at breakneck speed, cutting back onto the paved road while the shrieking shadows are left behind in the dirt.
Section 5. The Chilling Bill Twist.
Ranjit drives like an absolute madman until the morning light finally washes away the fog. Exhausted, literally shaking, he pulls over at the very first roadside tea stall he finds. A hot glass of tea kind of grounds him back in reality. He survived. So you have to ask yourself, was it all just a hallucination? Brought on by extreme fatigue and the thick fog? Well, the source material doesn't let us off the hook that easily. When Ranjit looks up at his truck's side window in the harsh light of day, he sees 3 distinct claw marks, 3 deep lines permanently etched right into the thick glass drawn through the dust.
It is hard, undeniable physical proof that the horrific entities that attacked his truck were very real and that the night was absolutely not just a trick of his mind.
So, the crucial point is, the story doesn't end there. The most mind-bending twist actually comes 2 months later. Ranjit's friend is looking at the consignment file from that specific night, and he discovers something terrifying. Ranjit was never supposed to go to Ajanra at all. The real destination on the books was a town called Bilasur. The paper Ranjit had been blindly following was actually a decades-old canceled bill for Ajanra, a place the company hadn't shipped anything to in years. By a pure, random clerical error, that cursed piece of paper somehow slipped into his file, sending him directly into a ghost town.
Ever since that night, Ranjit keeps a small brass temple bell hanging inside his truck cabin. He swears it rings completely on its own whenever unseen shadows pass by his headlights on lonely stretches of road. It's a pretty terrifying reality check for all of us. The road never truly ends. It only takes another turn. So what unseen dangers are waiting at your next turn? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. It's been a wild ride. Until next time, stay safe out there on the roads.